not great in Mexico. So my guts are kind of messed up. What are you gonna do?
As expected.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of
Part
tacos.
Not really. I mean, and we haven't been going out too much. There's not a lot of places to go here. So
Yeah, we're in like a quiet beachside town. There's
yeah.
lots of little like stuff on the side of the road, sort of like
Yeah.
taco stands. It's hard though because we don't eat meat, so
Yeah.
a lot of them, and with the ocean here, it's like fish tacos. So it's sort of a bummer because you're like, oh, it's all this like fresh, like authentic food, and then you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Do you like vegan meat?
I do.
I
I don't
mean,
eat
there's
it that
some,
much though.
yeah. Yeah, like it's come a long, long way. It's like when I was first vegetarian, there was only like one brand and then people who made them
Morningstar,
themselves. Morningstar, yeah.
they're
And
so gross too.
they were just like hockey pucks made from sawdust. Like that was a veggie burger back then. And now like, you know, there's Impossible Meat and Beyond Burger, and they're like all like Silicon Valley startups for
Yep.
fake meat effectively. So you're getting all kinds of innovation there. But yeah.
Well, I had no idea that was it came from there. We have it in the shop here.
Yeah.
Beyond, yeah.
Beyond Meat, like their founding story, I think that they organized like a startup. I could be wrong about some of this, but um, their like growth mentality, they rapidly grew that company. They're out of California. I think that there was some tech money involved in like VC money. Um, and they grew it, IPO'd, and like have covered the world. It's insane how quickly they're in Starbucks and McDonald's and all over the place now. I think they only launched like maybe a decade ago or something. So yeah,
They're
but
in
there's demand.
Starbucks, so they do like
Yeah,
breakfast sandwiches or something like that.
yeah.
Interesting.
And then Impossible Burger had like a different strategy. They didn't sell in grocery stores. They just did deals with restaurants. Um, and then like was a big marketing thing this way and
Yep.
spread that way. And now they've just started moving into stores. I don't know if they're publicly traded or not, probably. But yeah, it's a whole thing now, like the alternate
Impossible
meats.
Meat does a really weird thing like real meat where it's red, and then once you open the package and it like oxidizes, it turns brown.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see it, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like it's not real, but it's like following the
Yeah.
same sort of like patterning of like aging. It's very odd. It's kind of cool. I mean, totally like food science, like
Yeah.
wizardry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
So the next thing is lab grown meats. Like
yeah.
actual flesh.
Just don't understand why we have to like recreate meat. Why can't we just create like new foods? Like why do we have to just like copy something that already exists? It's funny to me.
I mean, this is how media technologies work.
Just
Like
copy first and then
well, the content of a new media technology is usually what is it? There's some Marshall McLuhan thing about this. The content of the last media or whatever upgraded or something. So
yeah.
or something like this. I mean, you get like Broadway plays to television, and television's initial thing
Yep,
is
yep,
just
yep.
filming Broadway plays. So
Yep.
before we get our new version of whatever meat is, you gotta simulate the old meat.
Yep. Well, I guess it's the thing, like as a vegetarian, I'm like, I don't really like stop trying to eat meat. So even if it's lab grown, I mean, I probably would eat it if it was lab grown, but one of the things that switches when you stop eating meat is the consistency of meat is super like noticeable. It's very different than other things. So if you mistakenly eat it, you're just sort of like, ugh. So there's sort of a trigger response. It'd be kind of fun to play with that actually.
Yeah. We'll find out.
We will. But for now, ice cream for dinner.
Yeah.
I have two more.
You should probably like stage them. So once you start like dipping from the sugar crash, just go for another one. We'll just be stringing you along
Yeah.
through the call.
It's yeah. I do have protein powder, like a vegan protein powder. Man, all of this burger talk, not
Yeah.
help.
Not helping.
There was this amazing burger next to the office in Stockholm when we were there. Red bean burger. It's not like a fake meat, it's just like really
Yeah.
Oh,
So good. Yeah.
mm.
What's your
I remember
favorite?
one time I just had like one bite or something because I ordered two and I kind of threw the last one. And now I'm thinking what a stupid decision that was.
Regrets.
Food regrets.
Burger regrets.
Farzad, what's
10
your favorite food from growing up?
Oh my god, the only thing that comes to mind is a chocolate.
He's a sweet
I
tooth.
don't eat spaghetti. A lot of the food that I ate when I was growing up, I can't eat anymore. So, and I've never been a food person.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
Yeah, so I don't have anything special there. I used to, I don't even know how old I was, but like Nutella, but it wasn't Nutella, but let's just imagine a Nutella. But the jar is like this big, and I'm 7. And I would just hug. I don't understand where my mother was at the time. I would just hug it, and I could actually wrap my leg around it. And then one knife, not spoon, just hardcore. Just and then I would just eat all of it and watch TV. And then I would just run around like a maniac after watching Bruce Lee or something
Yeah.
and hit all of the couches. That was my exercise at home. I was very fit when I was
I
young.
imagine. That sounds like a dream to me. Like if I could do that now, and that's all I ever did, I'd be happy.
I can't
Just
even have one Kit Kat now.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No. It just, I mean, yeah, like part of the thing, I've been eating a bunch of like sort of sugary stuff here. Not terrible, like not cakes every meal or anything, but like I just can't do it anymore. My body, like my joints hurt. Like I get inflamed. It's just like, yeah, you can't do this now. Like, stop it. And I'm like, but maybe, you don't know. Maybe I try again.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just, yeah,
And it
no.
never.
Yeah, I went 2+ years without eating any sugar in Oakland. Uh,
It's easier when you're grounded at home.
yeah,
You have like predictable patterns, you know, like where the grocery stores are. But traveling is really hard to do like consistent stuff.
yeah. And then we go to a coffee shop or something and they have like good cakes
They
or
have
like
all
pastries
of
or something. And I'm
all of
like,
the
what?
desserts. Yeah.
I'm trying to support local business. So I have to eat one of these. So
Wait, what? No sugar for how long?
2 years.
Wait.
I love how you're like, I didn't hear anything past that.
Yeah.
Like how accurate? So sugar, like everything?
He was
Yeah,
pretty
everything.
hardcore. Like not even a lot of fruit, like very specific fruits that had a low like sugar glucose like content.
Yeah, like so a minimum of like, what is it, 20 grams of carbs, 20,
He
30
was
grams a day.
he was doing the keto thing, Farzad.
Yeah.
I read about it.
But
Yeah.
it's really weird when you're vegetarian because
Yeah.
usually you do a lot of meat
Yeah.
and you can't do that as a vegetarian. So he had like a very specific, like I was like, how do you eat the same thing every day? Like every day. I was like, because I'm always looking for variety and like changing it up. But I feel like I've learned something from him and actually John, who we're living with. There are certain things if you just keep it the same, You don't have to think about it. It's a go-to. You know how it's going to make you feel.
Yep.
So I try to remember that. But yeah, he was really, what's the word? Diligent, committed,
Disciplined.
disciplined.
It's easy. Yeah.
New taste is so overrated. It is. I've never had it. I've never, it tastes good and then done. I can go, my father has always kind of eaten the same thing.
Yeah.
He's very consistent. Not sure about my mother's diet. Um, can't even remember. She didn't eat much, I guess. But I'm similar. So my breakfast is just one thing, and if it's not that thing, I just don't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
And I rarely eat dinner much, just lunch. What's the one thing you miss eating?
I don't know. Like, I like breakfast fruit, like breakfast foods. Like I like American diners,
Yeah.
like being able to go in and have like all of the stupid breakfast foods, you know, sausages and bacons and, you know, eggs and like weird pancakes and stuff like this. So I more miss the ability to just eat that. Just I'm gonna eat whatever. I don't care. Like I don't have to think about it. It's not I'm not gonna sugar crash or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, during the time that I was doing the keto thing, I didn't care. Like I it was so what I was doing there is like playing with the psychology of food response. Like so I effectively like didn't eat well for most of the time that I was building companies and stuff. Like I wasn't paying attention to this. I would go in and out. Like when we had a team and there was a bunch of people there who were really healthy, we would do team lunches and cook for each other and this kind of thing. And that was probably the healthiest I had been during that whole phase. But without that like containment, I was like very bad at like feeding myself appropriately. And being around Kristen, she's crazy healthy. So like I'm like, I got to get this worked out. I can't be like a 40-year-old dude like eating chips because that's just what's around. Uh, and so there was part of it where like there I had like developed like a sort of psychological trigger around sugar because I was using it to like as a stimulant and like it's in every fucking food everywhere, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would get like, you know, like it was probably tied to grief and loneliness, like these feelings of just like I need stimulation and like bad food is good stimulation, but it drops off. It's like bad TV, it's like bad anything. It's like smoking cigarettes, which I've never done, but I imagine. Uh, I was like, well, I want to reset this, or I want to have a better relationship with it. And doing the keto thing, you get like this intense experience of like working with cravings. Um, and if you zero out your diet there, your fuel source switches, so your mentality changes. Um, like your brain is operating on different like sort of
Different
wavelength.
gas. It's
Yeah,
different
different
gas,
gas.
different fuel. I actually
Yeah,
am the most interested in this aspect of keto. I've never done it, but if you
yeah,
change the fuel source of your brain from carbohydrates to fats, the yeah, the I mean, Dave can talk about the feeling of being and like cognizing changes,
yeah.
which that to me is like that's the craziest drug I could think of. You just straight up think differently. Like what is that? Like I still don't understand exactly what it's like, but people describe it as like very there's like a clarity to thought. Because you're not like the carbohydrates,
Yeah.
you go up and down with energy, like it spikes. Like sugar is the most extreme version of that, but with the fat it's more consistent, so you're not dealing with as much. This is my understanding of it.
It's part of
Ups and
it for
downs.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so interesting.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I was able to like compartmentalize the sort of the style of thinking and the rumination and all that stuff that I was doing like on a carbohydrate diet or whatever, and then slowly bring back in carbs over time. And then that stuff would come back as a flood, like just all of the related like feelings of, you know, like being all ramped up and energized and like, um, and then this is where I started doing Qigong to work with that energy. Like, okay, so I can feel this, like I want to run away from it, but like there's a way to process it and move through it and understand it and talk to it. And so like it's now been rebalanced. I don't really, I still get like sugar. I'm still like sensitive to it. Like I'd prefer not to eat stuff that like, you know, like a cake. If I have a piece of cake or something like that, I feel like such utter shit. Like an hour later, I just crash off a cliff, and then like negative thoughts start popping up, but I can notice them now. I'm like, you're just crashing off of sugar. You don't actually think that everything is falling apart in the world. Like, or I'm just like, you know, like I become sensitive to sound, or like an animal in a cage or something. I'm just like, oh,
I
get
think
them
it's
out.
kind of
You know, it's just crazy stuff.
I think it's kind of
Yeah.
cool though, because you can like tap into, it's almost like the underworld. Like you can like feel into things that they're there. It's not like it's causing hallucinations. It's just a different perspective
No,
on things.
it's a different sensitivity. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had this experience recently, after eating ice cream, and the project that we were working on, we were doing this thing where we were posting with a small group, and the constraints on what we were posting were like really vague. And after eating the ice cream and crashing off of it, it was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like it, like this whole like surge. And I journaled about it as one of my posts, because I was just like, I was having a hard time figuring out what to post. And in that moment, like I could feel all the pressure of like, why is this hard? And it was like super negative. And I'm like, I think this might be the ice cream talking, but I do think this is useful because I'm able to tap into something that is there. It's just sort of like helping it bubble to the surface, but it was really uncomfortable. It was like,
Yeah.
I hate this. This is horrible. It's not fun, because it wasn't like in the moment, but it also, there's this thought, like feeling like that you're getting it out of your system when you journal about it too. So I don't know,
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. It helps me like purge it in a way. It's weird. Sugar is a weird thing.
Oh my God. I mean, I know sugar is not good for you and all of those things. And I know it actually affects, especially if you are an anxious person or, you know, one with
Yeah.
PD.
Yeah.
But I never actually thought about how it's just how you word it. It helps with so much understanding the matter. Like, all right, it's not good for anxiety. All right, you know, whatever. So many
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
But then when you go with the examples of, all right, dark thoughts, or you
Yep.
just feel,
Yep.
yeah, I am sensitive to light, which is why it's always dark.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and sound too. So
Yeah.
my music is this. It's just
Just
very
low.
mellow. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no words in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. When it's not mellow, what happens? Do you get like sort of like a cacophony, like a lot of like stimulation?
I think music make you feel certain things, and I'm a person who always listens. So if somebody's talking,
Yeah.
I do listen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So most of the lyrics are just moody people.
You're just like, oh, I don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's not good. Yeah, so it's usually just sound always, and yeah, which is, you know, it's not so easy to live with somebody when you go.
Yeah.
You have all of these things, and for me it needs to be absolutely clean everywhere. Not like OCD type, I could probably pretty close to that, but it's more of a no stuff on the tables.
Yeah.
I just
No
have
clutter.
no
Yeah.
clutter anywhere, no dishes hanging around, or yeah, if there are any, I can't think clearly. I wonder what happens if I actually drop ice cream and sugar. I do take, I don't, oh my God, so many things I'm gonna miss. This ice cream, and then probably the skinny banana muffin in Starbucks. Oh my God. Yes. It's whenever you feel like, today is not a great day.
Mhm.
Like cold brew and that one. It helps
Together.
I
so
mean,
well. Yeah. But I
yeah,
wonder 1 hour after that, what happens then? I don't remember, but it's probably not great.
I started journaling about this stuff. So I started doing the thing where they've got blood glucose monitors now.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I
and
forgot
I
about
got
those.
one like in a sort of gray market. And so they're meant for diabetics to monitor their blood sugar. And the newer ones, like you implant a sensor in your arm, and then you have your phone, and you can scan your phone and like get a graph of what your blood sugar is doing in real time. Uh, and there's like a new company, I think a startup called Level, that like is doing this, like with all the influencers are doing this stuff now or whatever, and they've got like a pretty interface and all this stuff. But mine was just bought a bunch of sensors off of eBay and like uh and so I started monitoring this. I'd be like, all right, here's the kinds of things I'm eating, look at the blood sugar spike, and then you watch it go up to this area which is like, you know nuts, and then crash down below baseline. And then in this below baseline area, there's like this dip. And there I would be so hungry for more crap, or just I would be feeling that like downer thing. And so I'd write and journal like my mentalities. And you can go back and read the writing, and it's like wildly different personalities. Uh, like I'm like, okay, well, I need to even
That would
this
be a
out some.
really cool series of written posts where you show the blood sugar like graph
Yeah.
and then your journals corresponding with the different levels, because yeah, I mean it's pretty much a 1-to-1. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, there are weird psychological things in there that I think that, yeah, I don't know. It's different for everybody depending on your sensitivity to sugar. Mine was pretty high because I like blew my system up just eating like garbage, I think. Plus, I mean, I think that sensitivity runs in my family. Like my mom definitely has this stuff. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. Like it's like it's a food mindfulness thing. Like I wanted to understand like pretty much every part of, to the degree that I could. I had the time. I'm like, all right, you're bringing in food, you're bringing in sleep, you're bringing in like information, diet, all of these things. Like, how do they affect your thinking? Like,
And
what are the,
exercise,
and
movement.
exercise?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are the downstream effects of all of these things? And like, when I'm feeling some mixture of emotional material or frustration or something like this, uh, like how connected to things that I'm not paying attention to is that material? And like, what are, baseline health principles at all, right? Like, what is healthy look like to my body
Yeah.
and like my, system? I was sick of not understanding that stuff. I mean, I have a much better framing of that, but I still don't really have the food thing worked out. Exercise, I have pretty squared out. Like talking to myself through journaling and reflection and these kinds of things, that has come an enormous way. Like I couldn't go back to not doing that.
How
Yeah.
are you journaling? Like you say, you actually notice the personality changes
Hmm.
throughout the day. You're actually doing journal more than once a day?
Yeah. So I have a couple different methods. Every morning I wake up and I start writing immediately. That's the first thing I do. Like I don't read anything. I don't like I make coffee usually. Um, and I sit and I write until there's nothing that needs to be written anymore. Um, and
Farzad's
that can
like, I would
take,
never stop.
No, but
you
it's
do. Yeah.
I understand the value of it. I did it in the
Yeah.
past, but not to that. I always put constraints on everything, so I'm like three lines only. Oh, but
No, like the subconscious or the internal personalities,
Yeah.
they've got to work out what they need to work out. And like the way I look at it is that there is like you know, say there are like 5 people jockeying for attention in my head, right? Over, you know, because I'm working on a lot of different things. I've got like intellectual pursuits, and I've got our collaborative pursuits, and I've got artistic things and business things, and all of those voices are like a chorus, right? And some days, you know, I'm thinking very business minded. Some days I'm writing this like large, I'm like working on this big intellectual work around you know, like a new style of collaborative economy. And so it'll come out in this voice, you know, and I don't know what I'm going to get. It's not important, right? What's important is that I sit down and I have you know, I let these voices talk to each other and like sort of work out what they need to work out. And then there's like a few little practices in there that, like today, um, I can feel that I'm coming up on like some change, like in my approach to being on the internet, like, or reaching out to people or publishing again or something like this. And I don't want, I'm enjoying being anonymous online, like by not posting, by not
I've
engaging
heard
with
it.
people. Yeah, like my internet hermitude is probably coming to an end here. And like part of me is like, doesn't want that. Part of me does. And so, you know, what I start writing is like, I'm feeling, you know, this tension around the need to post things to the internet and have an audience or not have an audience or whatever. And so what I start doing is I just start questioning that stuff. Like, what would an audience get you? What is the nature of audience? What is your definition of audience? When you say that you want or don't want an audience, what does the underlying word mean? You know, and there's a bunch of different voices that sort of come in. um, and I just write this stuff out, and I'm kind of just channeling the thing. um, and that's a style that comes up pretty frequently. It's sort of like pseudo psychological philosophical work. And some days it's just like I sit down and I just start. I'm like, the way that this system works is like this, and I start doing technical writing or something, right? Like this will plug into that, and then, you know, I need to do this CSS on this thing, and I need to, you know, build out this model or whatever. And here's what we're missing for an upcoming meeting or something, and, you know, whatever. And as I go throughout the day in work, I have like a bare window open. And if I'm doing, which I haven't done a lot lately, but if I'm doing like sort of technical hands-on work, like say I'm coding or I'm designing or something,
Mhm.
as I'm working, I'm journaling out what I'm doing. Like, because I want to be a lot more intentional about being on the computer. Like, right now I'm feeling like a stress around this kind of thing, and rather than just fucking hammering it and like beating myself to death like getting something done, I'm like trying to be like, all right, so I'm going to approach it this way, like slow down and think, like do this smart, like do you need to do this work, like is this, because I'll get frustrated because I want to solve something or like uncover something or find an insight about something, but it's unnecessary. It might be I'm just doing it on autopilot. So I'm trying to minimize that. And then sometimes I just go off into a bigger thought, because all of these patterns of thought are repeating throughout the day. And then I'm doing a lot of study. So there's a style of like sort of note taking annotation that happens like when I'm working with like a piece of work. Right now I'm reading this book, 5,000 Years of Debt, which at some point, if you're into it, you should read it, because it describes money from the ground up, how it was invented, how people's mentalities and psychologies and religion works with money, like how people relate to debt and like money instruments. Like all of these things are fascinating to me, but it's like the meatiest book. And so while I'm doing that, I'm like taking notes, I'm like highlighting and stuff, but I'm also writing to myself about the implications in my own personal life and broader in the projects that I'm working on. So it's just like a constant discussion, and I'm talking, you know, and then I draw and like sort of free draw or whatever, sketch whatever's coming up. This is a style of journaling. Um, mm, there's a bunch of shit.
Are those the ones that you used to post to Instagram before?
Yeah, starting
Cool.
to just post them to our little buzzard thing. Yeah, that one's a weird one. I don't really know Like I read this one book that was like these two guys who were Jungian analysts, and they'd done lots of clinical work, like with clients and stuff. And they they have this, I forget what it's called, something like magician, warrior, something like these archetypes for men. Um, that book is really helpful in like sort of outlining a type of like character and like growth development model for men that I hadn't really seen around. Um, and one of the things they talked about that Jung came up with was, or has been around, but Jung sort of formalized, I guess, is the idea of doing journaling while you're in analysis.
Interesting.
And,
So not the therapist,
or
but the person receiving
yeah,
the analysis.
the person receiving the analysis would draw
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
like do this sort of spontaneous drawing practice. And I came to this thing myself, like because I needed to get back in touch with my creativity. And so I came up with this, I think I've mentioned it before, but this drawing practice where I would sit there with the iPad and like get the feeling that I need to make something perfect or beautiful or good, or like, I need to share it. I need to get something out in the world and be known through this, thing. And every time those feelings would arise, whatever I'm drawing, I would throw away. And so yeah, I would draw a little bit and then that shit would come up and I'm like, all right, next. And just over and over and over again, repetition after repetition, until finally I just start drawing and the critic voice is just calm. It's like, well, this doesn't work. You're just going to throw it away. So like, I'm like, you sit over there, you don't belong in this process. And so I carved out a bubble of just playtime effectively. And so I can put on music. I can get stoned sometimes. That's very fun. And then just like channel. I like doing this when people are around.
Yeah.
Like it's fun to just sort of be in, other people are working on stuff. I can sit there and draw. I'm never going to show anybody this stuff. Like it's unimportant. But what comes up is like a bunch of like sort of archetypical and odd things that I don't know how to draw, but I'm drawing. Like it's a weird thing. And in this book, they talk about how at some point in the healing process in doing this, people will start drawing like kings and royalty and like aspirational beings and this kind of thing.
Shamanic practice. That's interesting.
It's 1,000,000% that. And so I had an experience of doing this right before we were moving, and I like started drawing a man with a beard and funny sunglasses. And then I ended up looking like that. It was very weird. So yeah, there's all kinds of weird practices in there. That one was really fun. So I still do this occasionally.
I think the journaling thing is nice because there's in like the different styles of journaling, because you're in conversation with yourself, like Dave's saying, so that when you're working on a project or going through something, it's more familiar when like a thought pattern comes up or some piece of content. You're like, oh, I've thought that before, or I felt that before. And you can sort of tune into like what's happening as it's happening. And there's something with that of being grounded in yourself and understanding like what's going on. Sometimes it's not content, sometimes it's the process. Oh, I've felt like this before, like I felt the ups and downs like with sugar, so maybe I'm going through one of those, which means I'll probably follow this sort of pattern. Let's see what happens. It's less like, I don't want to say less scary, like there's like an understanding of what it is to be yourself that I think is helpful for showing up and being present with people and your work. Like it's useful for work.
I think because journaling at the end of the day, it would just be whatever you remember, and most times you won't actually remember the connections between things. So I actually had a coffee and then 2 hours later I had this anxiety or these things. You probably, which is why I just said alarm every other hour. So
Mm.
how many times? 8 times a day.
Yeah.
Just a quick check-in to see how I feel. I just want to see how consistent the feeling gonna be.
Yeah,
I'm
that's cool.
probably like this.
Yeah.
Will be fun to see why.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, you can start playing with like the fuel sources. Like if I eat just these kinds of things, what happens? If I eat just these kinds of things, what happens?
Yeah.
Like there's ways to play with it. What if I stop drinking coffee? Like what happens?
Oh, my food is like this much. Like I can't eat so many things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's already, I think, to the bare
A
minimum.
small, interesting.
I'm
Yeah. I
that
did the
person
same.
that is super
Yeah.
annoying with
How,
everybody can just order
what are
food.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know. Can you do this, this, and this? Why do you limit? Why do you constrain it? How did you get to that place?
I got a, what is it called? The bleeding.
Mm.
Um, yeah, in your stomach.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ulcer?
I guess that's what it's called. I mean, I don't
So
know.
you
Let me,
eat low acidity foods then? Like
because if you
sweets?
are very anxious, or when my panic
Yep.
Yep.
attacks are really
Yep.
high, and you tend to not eat much, and stress kind of makes that a lot worse,
Yep.
the acid, and it just went on like that for years, and I got this now, in English. So let's see what it is. Stomach ulcer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ulcer. Yeah.
Ulcer. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had similar kinds of things. This is why I started. I mean, I'm the least anxious I've been in ever since I was a kid, basically. Like doing these experiments and sort of getting a handle on like how the psychology around food, like
Mm-hmm.
my personal idiosyncratic relationship with these
Mm-hmm.
things, like um, because food as it's a drug, like, and it adjusts your brain chemistry, and depending on how like sensitive you are to these changes, like how emotional you are, and if there's any trauma around like food intake, right? Like it can be a triggering medium. So like this is why I went keto. I'm like I'm like, oh, there's a way to use an alternate fuel source where I can get back to zero and sort of I mean, this is my instinct on it, and then like not have the weird anxieties and cravings, and like feel a baseline of control again, and then from that baseline bring back in and work with the tendencies to be sensitive to all this stuff, because I have the same thing. I'm like, I'm vegetarian. I do that. I have it like all controlled into
Yeah.
like, I know where the food is coming from and on ramps and stuff. But being nomadic, it's very hard to do this. Like maintaining that level of control is like fighting reality. It's not possible. So
Yeah.
part of like the anxiety that I had in going into this like lifestyle was like there's it, but I got to work with that. I was writing about, I'm just like, dude, it's going to be this way. It's fine. You're fine. You'll live. It's fine. It'll come up, and then you
Yep.
address it and talk about it. And like, maybe you can get to the core of what is causing the control issues in the first place. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a path to understanding rather than something that I'm going to have to control and manage or whatever. There's a little of both, obviously. Um, but yeah, there's like a freedom in that a little.
I like that the term is actually you'll be fine,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because you actually think you won't.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah.
And then the more anxiety you have, the worse that thing that you are thinking about gets.
Yeah.
And you'll find it's such a, throwing ice cold water on fire. Um, yeah, that's very interesting. Like Sweden is very, very clean food, and
Mm.
especially around the area that I live, there were just popping bunch of vegetarian, vegan, super
Yeah.
healthy everywhere, and then they were experimenting with a bunch of stuff, so it was just delicious.
Yeah.
And then come to Thailand, it's just, everything is fried, everything is, incredibly oily and deep fried,
Yeah.
just noodles and powder and all that crap. So you're like, whatever. So you just let go to just see, to just not torture yourself, and then you kind of understand how to do it. I still don't cook myself, so I just find better places to order from. But
It's one.
I guess be working towards getting a chef.
There you go. Live-in chef. Yeah, one of the things with the "you'll be fine" thing, I find myself in my journals, especially when I'm like stressing over something. Like this took me a long time to be able to do this, and partially this is like from Kristen. Is basically like I'll be writing something and I'm like flipping out about usually like a big idea or something that's like beyond what I can understand right now, and I'm trying to feel out into the future more than what I can do, right? Like I have a set of information and that can give me a view, like a vision of what might be coming, but it's a fantasy out past all of it's a fantasy. And so I would self-soothe by creating more elaborate versions of that view, right? And the further you get abstracted from the present moment with that type of thing, the more anxious you can get because you're disconnected from, reality in a certain way. So there's a different
other people too.
Yeah.
So you get further out, and like if there's not a high fidelity sort of practice of expressing that, how do you explain to other people where you're at? So like for him and I, like we're super close, but there's sometimes where I'm like, I don't know where you are right now, and he's like frustrated because it's like, if I could just like get this part out, I'm like, I think you're too far, kind of thing. Like, I mean,
so
not too far, but like it can be isolating, I think is my point.
Yeah, and there's a balancing act here. Sometimes I'm doing that because it's an anxiety response to uncertainty.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm doing that because I'm on the hunt.
There's a
like
practice.
I've got a scent of something, and my hunter instinct, information hunting, is like sort of kicking off, and I want to chase a thing, right? But regardless, like working with the sort of anxieties and sort of tensions there, like, and the rising panic that can come from wherever, like half the time I'm in my journals, I'm just like, you're doing fine. Good job, bud. Like, I'm just giving myself this like constant, like, yeah, you're fine. It's whatever. Like,
positive
I write out some
affirmations.
Yeah. And like, I used to find this so fucking cheesy.
Yep.
But now I'm just like, I'm like a parent talking to a kid. I'm like, you're doing whatever you're doing. You're not freaking out. You're engaging with the things that scare you. Like, you're doing great. Proud of you. It's ridiculous. It's fun.
It's so good.
Wholesome.
Yeah.
I tend to sometimes listen to videos like Alan Watts, and those people just have that as a background. And let me send you an example on share this, copy link, and I drop it in Telegram.
Cool.
It's nice. It's just everything that you already know, but it's a good thing to listen to daily, kind of get reminded on some basic things to bring it back to reality. But I think journaling will probably help a lot. I'm a mess. I've recently realized it.
You recently realized it. That's funny.
I mean, to the degree that I'm very unstable, I should probably do something about it.
What's the nature of the instability that you're feeling into? You got to journal about it to really figure it out.
Yeah, right. It's a control thing, like that Dave mentioned. And it goes in every aspect of my life and all relationships and all projects, every little thing. And I don't know. I know why you can't always kind of make stories around it.
Yeah.
I guess it's just excuses, but I didn't have much control about my own life. I still don't about my financial or company stuff because it's not my name. So I'm trying to control everything else that I can get my hands on. And the first thing is usually food.
Yep.
That
And
makes
the
sense.
yeah. And then is just how I should spend my time. And I become too not productive. That's not the name for it. I'm not wasting any time in my mind. So there is no Netflix, there is no watch. I've never had that. I don't allow myself to have anything like that. And if anything, I don't perform good at. I take away things from myself. So I kind of
Yeah.
torture myself
Yep.
since I was very, very young. And I kind of realized it when I was talking about some childhood memories with somebody. I'm like, oh my God, that was what I was doing. Like I had like good clothes and bad clothes, you know? And then I
Yeah.
would, if I'm not doing the, like, where the fuck did that come from? I don't have that thing. I wasn't grown up like that. It was just a decision that I made because I'm like, okay, my parents are fine with whatever. This
Yeah.
is obviously not gonna work out. Especially my mother. My mother, like, I mean, you study for yourself, so it's just, no, I'm all right. And
Hmm.
uh, so yeah. Anyway, the control thing I really need to get rid of, and
Work
it's
work with
probably
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
work.
I
Yeah.
Work
yeah.
with it. Cause like the concept of getting rid of is it's a lot. Like that's putting a lot of
Yeah.
pressure on you then. And if you don't know how you're gonna get there, it's sort of like it's just a big undertaking. I'm just softening it a little bit, but
I mean, a lot of what I do in
Yeah.
journaling is that, like, so I recognize like a tendency, and I have a similar tendency on the control thing. And so my practice has been like, all right, this thing, like, I dislike the way that it's showing up in my life. And so my previous model was this must be obliterated. Like we must surgically remove this thing.
and
Um,
as soon as possible too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
And
okay.
Deadline
Slow
tonight.
down, slow down. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
What are
so
you
what I
surgically
figured,
removing? And I don't know, but I'm gonna do it. Okay.
so one of the things that the keto diet helped was the energetic response to these kinds of things is a lot slower because you don't have spiky energy. It's steady state energy. It's good for practicing patience and like letting that, like, okay, so this observation has implications in my life, right? Like I tend to control things. Okay. Um, where is that a positive? Where is that a negative? Like there's a gradient on any behavior, right? That in extremis it flips over into like positive or negative, like relationship effectively. And so any of these things that are like obsessive or that you can turn on, they're a superpower in one thing and then they're a weakness in another. So like this strength and weakness balance, right? Like having a model of this kind of thing. Um, and usually these things are super potent and can be flipped towards a positive within your life. But it requires like having a conversation with the thing that is driving it to be extreme, which is where journaling comes in. So what like the practice that I had with these kinds of things is you feel the need to control, right? And so like that kid, that child that you were that developed this solution to an anxiety or some circumstance, like there is an act of like having an adult persona. This is what I do. People can come out, you can figure out however, like the adult persona that has an understanding that this behavior existed, that it came from somewhere, like you can engage in a discussion through whatever medium with the child and like go back even to a core memory. Like you can do this, weed helps with this for me. Like go back in and I'm writing to this younger version of me, and like you can unpack like how you could solve it now knowing what you know, right? So you created a system of like control, you know, with clothing or food or behaviors or something like this, because that's the tool set that you had at the time. That's all you were working with. And so you came up with a novel, creative way of solving a stressor in your life or whatever it was. So now how would you do this? Right. And so you give that kid room to think about the problem, and it relaxes the initiating tension. Like, so you're in dialogue, and sometimes the kid will freak out and get triggered because this is the way you solve things. Like, yeah, but there's also other ways. Trust me, I know, I'm alive. Look, you got me here. This sort of thing. And slowly you can sort of detach from it, get a 30,000 foot view on the behavior, not be triggered by it. And that's, you know, it's exposure. You have to like sort of expose yourself to the feeling state. And then what happens is it flips into the adult or mature version of that behavior. And you get an energy release, and then you'll get high on it because it's crazy, because you've released your conditioned response to that behavior. And then it's about like, how do you initiate this in an adult fashion in the world? Like, who do you become when you know that you have these tendencies, like, but they
It
are,
feels very
you
Jungian.
integrate them. Yeah, I mean, this is the Jungian
There's like
practice or whatever.
shadow, there's something like below the surface. Yeah. And then
This
you
is the
can sort
shadow
of
work stuff. Yeah.
bring it to light kind of thing. I think the easiest starting point is just noticing and then writing about it.
Yeah, that's the basic version of this.
That's like the easiest thing to do. Just so, like, I mean, you have them on the tip of your tongue, Farzad, which is interesting. Yeah.
There is a practice of like, it can be really disconcerting to go into this work because there's a bunch of fears and darkness and whatever the hell. But knowing that it's all fine. It's all fine.
Well, that's why, like, for me, I like starting at this point of just like noting what's arising, because I'm not trying to change anything right away. It's just, I'm just noticing.
Yeah.
This is what's happening around this area. And then later making a decision like, do I like that? Like, what would I change if I did change? Like, I'm just very like tempered with it, I guess. I don't like
you're chill.
Quick change.
No, Farzad is maybe more in my realm on this, because like I basically have to create a buffer around it so that I can observe it for a little while, because my tendency is to act. So if I don't have like a containment field around it so that I can understand what I'm acting with, like I'll tend to move into experimentation prematurely. So like, give it room to breathe, like, because if it is a condition that is like sort of negatively oriented for whatever reason, because of trauma, because of you know, like exhaustion, that it's like a startled animal. So like, build a safe relationship in some way with the behavior, and then like learn to talk to it, build some trust, and then start to come up with design practices. Like, how would we solve this with somebody, you know, to get the you know, not to eliminate the behavior, but to better understand its power, I guess, is the way I look at this. And that's a mutual relationship with the behavior. Anyhow, I don't know if this is making any sense.
Yeah, you have to be nice to yourself. That's the biggest challenge, especially with anxiety. Like, there's this weird thing, like wanting to, I mean, I think we all have this, like wanting to beat yourself up. It's wild.
Yep.
Like,
no, I mean,
wow.
It goes, it's so obvious when you are a kid. You can see it now, but I don't see what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's probably replaced by a bunch of tiny stuff that I haven't, you know, kind of found out yet, because I don't look at it anymore. But like, I never understand how people chill. I can't even, like, even if I'm watching, let's say, for me, for whatever reason, whenever I say chill, like Netflix, but if I'm watching something just to enjoy it, 10 version of me are thinking about it from different angles through,
Yeah.
let's say, work,
Dave is like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
life, dreams, goals, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not actually there watching the
No.
thing for the sake of watching it. I'm trying to find answers for my next step that I want
Yeah.
to get unlocked, which is, you are which is why I need a turn off. I had a drink after a very long time, and I'm like, oh, this is good, like quiet. It's quiet now. Now I can be in here now. And then as soon as you pass that, the sweet spot where you are present, you go either future or back,
Yeah.
or travel to the
It's like
past.
a time machine.
You pass that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny.
And you stay there kind of blah, 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 and I think at the end you are just trying to solve all of your biggest problems
Yeah.
while you are just functioning with like 5% of your intelligence. And then fuck it.
Yeah, I just got sick of feeling that way. I hated it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not hated it. I just am like, all right, well, this is the way it is. Like, okay. But it, like, very clearly there have to be tools to work with this kind of thing. Like, I'm not the first crazy person.
What do you mean you hate the way what is? I'm not following.
So the
drinking thing?
No. The version of the like sort of mental state that Farzad's describing, like where
Oh, yeah.
the ability to run analysis across every single part of your brain, like never being able to be present with anything for more than 5 seconds without like jumping into some big model or whatever the hell it is. And occasionally like I'd be able to get there by going out into nature and disconnecting fully and then like detoxing, but that it was such a painful process to do this.
Yeah,
because
this is why I used to drink, because it would turn it off and I could have fun. And then the next day when I was hungover, it was quiet. And I remember I worked at a coffee shop and I loved being hungover. Like, it was miserable physically, but mentally I was just like, oh, this is so nice. And people I worked with are like, you're like a different person when you're hungover. I was like, I told you. And they're like, what is going on? I was just like, I just don't have all the shit that's usually with me, because I've like killed a bunch of brain cells. It's not a good thing, but yeah. I mean,
I don't have much hangovers, so I skip for the most part that part. And I usually kind of punish myself again. I go for a run or whatever and kills it.
Yeah, I used to do that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess what you're saying, Dave, is trying to find something that's an approach to quieting the mind that's less
meditation. I mean,
aggressive.
all of the great answers. You just don't do them because like, what's the fun in that?
It's also really hard to do them, even though they're like simple practices. It's like extraordinarily hard. Yeah.
10 minutes meditation equals, what is it? 3 nights of crazy party, or a good night's sleep on a cloud-like bed. But here a question, which is I've been thinking about a lot. Do you see things as they are, or are you just trying to, all right, this feels like this and that, and then suddenly you have what is it called? A Frankenstein of a character in front of you. Because I'm like that. I don't see things as they are. So I go, I've seen that behavior before, and that part and these words, and then all right, that's who it is. So you already build out the you have, because you start connecting things. And I'm a very kind of a detail oriented in a sense, like how you walk, how you move your hands when you talk, and where you look when you talk, and all of those things. And I've seen most of this in the past, and I kind of know people how they are, and I'm like, all right, this plus this, and now you are like this, and I'm talking to you as if you are that person. And then there goes all of the problems in life.
I mean, that's a pretty good observation of that you're having, though. That's pretty detailed.
But isn't it crazy?
Yeah,
No, I
I
think
mean,
that's pretty. I think that you knowing that is no
that's what's
is
crazy.
yeah. Most people
Most people
don't.
have no idea, and it takes forever for them to get to that point, and then they're like, because they don't even know they're doing it, and then you're telling them, well, if you just meditate, that will stop, and they're like, well, what will stop? What? Like, what am I doing? They have no awareness of what's happening in their own mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I oscillate between being able to accept things how they are and doing the projection and triangulating and like piecing it all together. I can feel it like ebbing and flowing sometimes too. There's levels of this as well. I think that there's different sort of stabilizations as you're accepting reality more and more on reality's terms, but it's not consistent. It's not like you're walking up a flight of stairs and at a stable pace. It's like you're on a roller coaster. Sometimes like it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes you're super reactive and super projecting and then you catch yourself, and other times you're just totally zenned out and in the flow and you're just like, I see things how they are, and it feels pretty cool, and you're like,
Yeah.
I get it, and then the next moment you're not. I don't know. I seem to jump around, but there is like a trajectory or direction of having it stabilize over time, which is cool. Feels
Yeah.
nice.
That's actually what I'm running towards. Because when you go and surround yourself with new people and new places, you don't have that already image in your mind. So you're like, all right, this is a new environment. There is no
Yep.
attachment to anything right now.
Yep.
In state of mind, I'm present.
Yep.
But
This is why I used to ride motorcycles and go fast on bikes, and it's like a forcing function for in presencing. Yeah.
Yep.
I drive nuts. And same thing, it's just the sport of it enables you to focus.
Because you'll die
uh,
Otherwise. Yep.
So yeah. Well, you don't think about that part as much.
No.
But so this you try to go back to your memory and then try to find where I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And you notice this type of people as soon as they go, hey, you know what this looks like? It looks like just what it is. But then some people always try to say, hey, this looks like a face. You know, it's just like two numbs or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this looks like that. And, you know, then they have that type of thinking patterns in their mind. And then the more you go into it, the more fucked up it will become in your life. But I was just thinking, and I'm gonna go ahead and blame all of this to the business mind of people, not the creative side, because you start, because it's a form of judging. I never understood that it got such a bad rep, that word, that reputation, that kind of, or bad meaning. But we do it constantly. It's not a bad thing, it's a very human thing, and you do it with yourself all the time. So you see a picture of yourself, or you talk, like we are kind of recording these calls, and then you go back and watch them, and oh my god, I do these things, and people that do these things are X and Y and Z, you know. And now I'm this, but now I don't want to be that person, so I need to stop that type of so that's whatever happens with this looks like that ends up being you judging everything and everyone, and including yourself being the worst of it all. The second one is people that don't run a business, they have much more calmer mind, because they are not, because with business you need to understand the number people are saying is not the real number. So there is always something behind the surface. When you're learning to negotiate, you learn where to kind of find those kind of words, or they're like, okay, there's more to it, we can keep digging until the truth comes out. And that's how you negotiate, basically, because most people don't say the truth.
You can do this in your journaling with yourself. Negotiating what the baseline is, because you know that there's a bunch of stuff on top of it, right? Like there's even in your this is where journaling over a long period of time, you get all the lies and bullshit out, and then you can get to a baseline where you can speak truth to yourself, right? Um, yeah, all of the stuff that you're talking about, the sort of psychological, the what can you trust? What is your relationship to reality? What are the people around you? What is their relationship to reality? What do they care about in terms of truth and knowing and lack of bullshit, right? So the place that I got with all of this was, I'm sick of not knowing, like having a fractured relationship with reality. And that particular, like, I just use the intensity I have for things to be like, I am now intensely engaged with knowing what reality is and all of the implications that has, and that's an ongoing practice, right? But this is the practice of wisdom, right? So, like, rather than making a lot of money or impressing people or making great work or all of these other things that are external motivators, like I slowly figured out that you can peg aspiration, the aspirational self, to wisdom. Like, if you seek to gain wisdom, like, that is the thing, that is the purpose in which I am orienting most of my energies. The practice of wisdom is reducing self-deception. So there's an engine in that, right? And so if you are engaging in a business pursuit and it is not increasing your wisdom or craft or art in the act of businessing, right? And there are ways to do business that are artistic, that are creative, like you're talking about. People for whom they are just copying some formula or script and then replaying it. I am uninterested in that, right? What is the style of business that comes from a wise mindset? Something that in the world, like, is aligned with reality and is converting potential energy into value to be exchanged with people who care for that value, right? Like, that whole practice is something that is more spiritual than it is, like, a secular practice or something like this to me. So once I got that working, then, like, all of the little behaviors that I'm trying to engender, the healthful things, the meditations, the whatever, those are in service of doing craft-based business, craft-based, like, artistic-based practices across the larger scale. So it made it easier to do meditation, because if I want to be good at this, I need to have a clear mind. So, like, tying all this together into, like, a bigger web is how I sort of started working with these things. Like, and these little things, like running little programs where, like, trying to, like, the inner critic thing, the judgment thing that you're talking about, that thing it is stopping you from seeing reality clearly. It can help sometimes, but most of the time it's just a distraction. Like, that person is like this and they're like this and this is like that and this is like this and in comparison to this and I'm not great and blah 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 blah. Like, it'll just fucking go forever. So, like, yeah, figuring out practices to know when that voice is necessary, right? Like, this is just getting your mind in order, kind of like that control that's not control is, like, for me, was like a crazy healthy practice. Like, I couldn't stop meditating once I got a taste of the potential of that thing. Yeah. Because, like, your clarity of thought and your ability to, like, because you're talking about, you can observe people's behavior, right? There are skills with that practice. There are maturity levels that over time, like, so say somebody who has been doing clinical practice with people for 50, 60 years, they are going to hear nuance in people's behavior that without doing that practice, you wouldn't be able to. So this is true also of, like, engaging with people in general. There are ways of listening to people, like, and giving them room to tell you what they need, right? Or what they're feeling or where they're coming from, that like aren't necessarily in a business perspective, right? Where you're seeking to gain advantage or like you are working on the other side of a deal, right? In collaborative practice, this helps you be closer to where value will arise rather than manufacturing value based on like seeking advantage. Like it's rather than a profit mindset, it's like a co-creation mindset. Like
Yeah, it's like
I don't,
competitive, collaborative sort of
collaborative
distinction.
versus competitive. And the first place to stop the competitive like stuff for me was like to find where I'm being competitive in my own mind with myself. Like constantly comparing myself against metrics that are moving all over the place. And this is a type of self brutality. Like, because if you are constantly driving yourself, like, or what your consideration of self is, there's no time to rest. You can't chill because you're in a constant competition mentally. Um, I still I drive myself, right? But it's less competitive and more passion fueled now. I'm still working on this, but yeah. Anyhow, that was a lot. Sorry.
I make a lot of notes. Yeah.
Wise business, I
One thing.
think. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you mean, why business?
Wise, like
Well, before,
wisdom.
wait, can I jump in before you
Yeah,
get
I'm
into
done.
that? I think that one of the things that's interesting that's coming up for me is like business is more analytic and the creative work is more flow based. And so there's this like feeling that's different where like the business stuff can be ordered and sort of shaped and formed in a way that's plug and play, it's interchangeable, like like it's the sort of like strategic, whereas the creative stuff feels softer a little bit and more fluid and like moving. Like they're both moving, but there's something here, like the creative stuff feels like it's more in flow, but there's a way to make business flow too, I think. So
I think that's, yeah. I
that's what I'm
mean,
interested in. And I think that's where Dave was going with the wise business. So like,
yeah.
how can you, yeah, I don't know how to talk about this yet, but this is the same concept that I'm interested in, largely with using technology in a way that helps people actually connect with each other versus technology that just lets you do something. Like
Yep.
yeah.
I'm not good at articulating this yet. This is sort of a space I'm interested in, and it's hard to
I mean,
put words to it.
yeah, I think like strategy is creative work. So, I mean, anybody who's actually good at creating strategical plans, they are creative people. But then the insanity comes when you're good at both. So both the business mind and then the creative mind, because they're in a
Yep.
constant battle, and then they are like, it's not even two people, it's two teams
Yeah.
constantly fighting with each other, and you are in the middle. Even though probably the control stuff, man, comes from just not having control over your own mind. So you try to because everybody else is
thing right there.
Yeah.
That's where I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, all right, how does the brain work? How do I relate to how my brain works? I will understand this. I want to have tooling. I want to understand what the wisdom traditions say, what psychology says, what philosophy says about this particular thing. Because if you are at war with yourself and you are trying to seek to control that war, the only way to do it is to have a strategic understanding of what the battlefield looks like. Who are the players in the battlefield? Why are they enemies? Like, why are they fighting? How can you do war with yourself in a more artful way so that it is productive
Fluid.
rather than destructive? You know, that was the basis. And then what is it like to be at peace with yourself? right? What does that look like? Do you need to start another war because the only way that you know how to live is through war? Like, that's the only way I knew how to live. And is there a way to be intensely collaborative, like using the energies of competitive business in a collaborative way that is fulfilling for people beyond your personal gain, right? This is like, there is an art to this. This is like the text, like the art of war and stuff. Like, there is a way to do these things in a way that is taking into account like all of the things that matter in the world, right? But you need to know what those things are and how you relate to them, so that yeah. So this
Yeah.
balancing act between the creative and the business, like business and beauty, we sort of ran into a lot of this stuff, Kristen and I, like getting them to talk to each other, is there is a synthesis that comes from this dance of those things that can, the tension can produce things of inordinate value, but they have to be held in such a way that they don't tear each other apart. So yeah,
I think this pattern is very common in the world. I think there's a lot of things that fit into this sort of mold, like the yin and yang, hot and cold. Like, there's just a bunch of male and female, like, things need to come together that are very different. And when they do, that sort of merging, and if you can do it in a way that is, I guess, graceful, there's something that comes out of it that is like, ultimately, it's like another level. It's transcendent.
Yeah.
I think the balance comes from the self-image. Like, if your self-image is weak, and most of the time it is for people with anxiety, you cannot balance the both worlds in your mind. But then as soon as you kind of associate yourself with being a strong-minded person, or somebody who can deal with a lot of difficult problems and come out, headstrong, all those things. But even though you probably done that in your life, you're not considering yourself as one. So you kind of find yourself victim in the middle of these two kind of fights, the logic and then the creative side of things. And then you start looking at, because if you're not able to control it, it kind of goes on to other people, or kind of splashes on people. Then because you cannot figure yourself out really well, you start figuring out everybody else, and you go into, or I go into very detailed stuff. So the other day, and all of these are insecurities, which we hide. I think creative people are very sensitive people, just all of us. Then the business mind, we develop it to become strong. So we think, in order to own, it comes just from the first time you are displaying your work to somebody. So you go, I can actually own the entire process. You protect yourself by just owning the business yourself. You own the entire creative process. Then you go get that business mind to protect the sensitive side or the creative side. Then the real self is kind of lost somewhere in there. I lost a train of thought. I want to say, it's gone.
Something with
I mean, I hear it.
Self-image, like, that's interesting. Like, if you can center within yourself, if you can sort of find equanimity, like a balance within yourself, and then you can bring that out into the world, I feel like that makes sense to me. That resonates. Yeah,
I mean, insecurities, which we don't really show. I mean, just creative people.
We're all people. But if you don't have an understanding of your insecurities, like what I'm feeling into is that what you're saying is you bring that and then you project them into the world. You put them on other people, and then the sort of insecurity that you feel within you becomes present in the world, which is not a great thing, because And then it's such a weird sort of, and then you're trying to control the external thing and like put order around that. But if you just start with yourself, it'll go a long ways to the perception of order, at least of understanding how things are in the world.
Yeah,
Because
this is
ultimately what's happening out in the world is similar to what's happening within you. Like there's similar patternings, there's an understanding. If you can understand yourself, you'll understand the world better. I think that's been my experience.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
and
a limitation too.
I can't talk about that without feeling into like non-dual states of having the like there's no difference between you and me, that kind of thing, which gets into a whole spiritual world, which is super difficult to talk to. It's more of a felt sense, but I think there is something there.
I think people are different, very radically different. I think we are more different than we are, against the contrary belief, I guess. But that's my belief. It's just like there are few things in common than common.
that's
Maybe,
a belief.
yeah,
You can
and,
question that belief.
Yeah. I mean,
and what
on
what
the
is
surface,
different about
most
them?
things- Yeah. Well, yeah. Wait, what? Dave, you wanted to say something before?
No, I mean, a lot of this is popping up, but that particular, like one of those, right? Like I believe that people are such, right? So like the practice that I have with those kinds of things are, if this is true, what are the implications psychologically, behaviorally, whatever? Now, what is the inverse of that, right? Like that's the kind of thing that I like to do, because then you can be scientific about it. So if the worldview, because this is where you can sort of design yourself, like this is kind of what you were talking about, like having a self-image, right? Like there is something below even self-image. How do you fundamentally design the mechanism of self? What is your self structure, right? Like, because the self structures that are being offered by other people are like, you have to think this way, you're a singular individual, you compare yourself to other individuals, blah, 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 blah. That shit doesn't work for me. So rather than that, I like to have a bunch of smaller selves that are working with each other in a collaboration. Then there is a discussion and there are balancing acts within that discussion. And if I can have this balanced self based on talk, there are practices to balance this out, then the works that I put into the world should reflect that balance, right? So like this is the kind of thing. And so part of that are, what are the series of beliefs, my operating system in the world in relation to other people? So if one of those are, we're all different, that's fine. Like you can operate from that perspective. Like if we are ultimately all separate and different, and that requires a playing field of like software and creation that needs to build in that way. If instead we are all extremely like similar, that provides a different way of building things and a different solution set. So anyways, that's sort of
But
connecting to the image of self stuff.
yeah, but I think most of the problems in relationships, like between people, comes from their belief of they think everybody thinks like them.
Yeah,
So
I
that
mean,
creates
there's a lot of
biggest
that.
alignments. So
Yeah.
if you actually go about living that you don't actually have as common as you think with other people, you would actually seek understanding first.
I think you're right in that. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, that's
I
the whole
think
thing.
what we're playing with in our work is finding ways of creating contexts so that people can like communicate with each other from their perspective honestly. Because if that is possible, then what happens is you can see through somebody else's eyes on how they see the world. And that gives you this understanding that we see things differently, right? The differences though are they're smaller than they seem, like because we are all sharing perspective on the world, we have a lot of commonality in the way that we've come up together as a species, right? Like we're working with similar sensors, similar psychologies. The conditioning can be different, but like the reason that we can build all of this stuff and change the world in the way that we have is because we are ultimately tribal and communicatory, right? Like we can collaborate through those tensions of small differences to find something that synthesizes and arises from the differences, right? It's the same tension that you're talking about between the sort of artistic and business mind. Those are very fundamentally different languages. The value is in having them speak to each other, looking through both of those perspectives into something that couldn't have come before. That is true also of collaborations and multiple people's perspectives. So what are the sets of tools and contexts and like abilities that can be produced when you value multiple perspectives, like overlapping into a new value? This is a mental model that I think we're playing with a lot. Like, and it undergirds this idea that like when you hear somebody speaking authentically through their perspective, like you can start to see the world, like that's where insight comes from. You're like, oh fuck, I hadn't thought about it, right? And
Yeah.
so valuing that can help us see reality more clearly. And then if you have individuals who value seeing the world clearly, looking through their eyes, like Alan Watts values reality and truth to the degree that he can tap into it, which is why listening to him is relaxing, because he is unencumbered with bullshit, right? So yeah, that's practicable. Anyhow, preaching.
You like to preach.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about, like when you start into one of like what the preach sort of like mindset, is there a felt sense of that for you?
We're tapped into a vein of something that is like, it
Triggering.
lights my brain up, like triggering in a positive sense. Like we are close to something, a truth here, right? Like there is a mechanism that we are dancing around, like psychologically, like and particularly it comes into like the kinds of ways of relating to each other as humans, right? And like where we can do that better if we have like an insistence that it can be done better, right? This is a solvable, like you can play with this, and this is the thing that needs to be played with so that
So
we don't boil ourselves on this planet. So there's like that thing going.
yeah,
It's just the most interesting. Yeah.
You launched into the preaching again. So there's a need
Yeah.
to express it in a way. There's just I'm just curious about it because I don't have this personally. So like I notice it a lot. I'm like, he's doing the thing again. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, should I be doing that? Like there's this,
If you feel called to do that.
I don't know if I could. Like, I don't know that. Yeah, it's like a passion. It's like not being overtaken by passion, but speaking through passion. Like there's something there, I think.
I think whenever we touch on something that Dave has thought about internally for a long time,
Yeah.
comes to a very good understanding of it. And then whenever we hit that, he, by verbalizing it, he understands himself better.
Yeah,
which
for sure that
you should teach to learn.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
The thing is, he's thought about everything. So he's got he's got something to say about just about everything.
Well,
I think for the lack of better word, like I see my mind as problematic. Is that the word? So the more problematic that your mind is, or how you connect things, the more things you try to learn about yourself, just to understand yourself, because you are so not calm, because there's a bunch of things are always going on. Like to be like
Yeah.
very exact about things. You know how on the I like how it's been only a week since our last call, and I think that most of the last call went on like I'm running towards things, and then I'm not running away from things, and I need a change. I got the contract signed
Oh,
on the
nice.
fourth floor, and I'm moving in hopefully this weekend if they let me
Is
to an
that the
empty house.
place? Is that the place that you showed on Instagram? The 4-bedroom, the bigger one, without the good gym though?
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah. No, you know why? Because again, details. It's just like a few motorbikes always parked in the parking lot. And the parking lot is open space. So that's the first thing that you see as you walk into the building is
Yeah, yeah.
just a bunch of motorbikes. Say that what?
Yep, I heard that.
This
Yep.
is four-season kind of four-season residents. So they are just basically boxing your way away from the reality. All of these, luxury residences,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and
a
then
busy
giving you
city.
space.
Having the
Huh?
quietude. It's a busy city. Having the quietude to sort of escape, I think that's nice.
That, and for whatever reason, you kind of think that, or I think that importance, something there, with all the service that comes with this kind of
Yeah, yeah.
place. Like
Yep.
I feel important.
Hmm.
Again, protection for probably some insecurities there.
Sure.
Otherwise, why blow up so much money on just rent? Um, yeah, so the last week is just running away from stuff, and I know I'm running towards some stuff, and then this week is like there are some control issues,
Hmm.
and there are some bunch of all of these things that I'm like, I should probably deal with it now. And then I'm all right, sugar, that's the first thing that I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Journaling every other hour just to see if the mood is consistent, because I always thought about, all right, daily, once a day, and by the end of a day, similar to how you go, like how you feel, and then once you show up in the therapist, you're feeling completely changed just because you had a good walk right before it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm doing about every other hour and then see how that actually adds up. It's gonna be super interesting to try out. And dealing with insecurities, those things never go away. So
No.
how you actually walk past it, um, because then you just see everything as is.
Yeah, I think that, so again, them never going away is a belief. Uh, I think that they morph, they become something else. I mean, you can design whatever
Yeah.
reality system that you want, right? This is where the power of your narrative structures and your grammar around these things. This is the sort of cognitive behavioral therapy. Like if you can change the grammar of how you approach behaviors, insecurities, these kinds of things, then you can change your relationship to them. So there will always be insecurities. That, there's
Yeah.
always something
Yeah,
shadow work
I
that
can
you need
agree
to
with
work
that.
with. You are
Yep.
never perfect. That is an illusion. That's nonsense. And I think that that's harmful. People thinking that they can achieve perfection.
Yep.
Um, there is a finished product. That is not true. Everything is in flux. Everything is changing.
Yep.
Like, this is relaxing to me. Because then you can just put out the thing that you best know at the time that you know it, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
based on what practice you've done to lead yourself to be a person who can put out something, it's relative, right? So the insecurities can be, if you can recognize them, then you can work with them. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's the part, right? So all of us know the shortcomings. Then you go, all right, there is no solution to this as some things. Then you go towards and then obsessing with a bunch of other stuff. This is all of the health stuff where that comes from, and food and everything else. You're just basically trying to fill that void with something unrealistic. And by the way, my understanding of reality is that there is no reality that we can all agree on. Just everybody have their own version of it, and they just try to
Yeah, it's fine.
don't, yeah. Um,
But we can find consensus. We're really good at this. We are social animals by default.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
like,
we're doing it right now.
yeah,
Otherwise, this would be crazy if there was like
it'd just be
no
chaos.
shared. Yeah, we'd be talking past each other. I mean, there's a cadence to talking. We let each other have turns, that kind of thing.
There's an art to
That's the surface.
sharing realities, you know?
Yeah. And some people are not good at it. And then there's some people who can't do it because of like the brain wiring. Like, so like someone with like advanced schizophrenia or something, where they're in their own world. They don't really share a reality with anyone, and they can't really, it's really hard for them to get along in the world. And this is where you often see people living on the street because, and they're not there. They're not in the
Yeah.
same place that we are. So those are like examples
You know
for
how
me.
there are functioning alcoholics?
Yeah,
There are probably functioning schizophrenics.
there
Yeah.
are. Yeah, there are. There's some people that it's not as
Yeah.
strong. Yeah,
Barely.
you're not schizophrenic.
But the thought
You might be
has
something
crossed
else.
the mind
Yeah.
a lot of times.
That's the thing. I think that like if you can't find I mean, this is a hard thing about having a
High
mind that is
functioning anxious, high functioning
Yeah.
anxiety. Because like the anxiety thing where you're constantly like running an algorithm to see like what's going on and like piecing things together.
True,
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there is a thing there where you're not putting the anxiety down. I mean, I used to be super anxious, but you can function. Like this is like in my past life doing health consulting, people were like, "You're anxious?" Like I would bring it up and they're like, "I would never know." Like like your ability to like come into a room to lead people to, and I'm just like, I'm flipping out the whole time basically. And they're just like, I didn't know. Yeah, which is, that takes so much energy though to like project being calm, and then inside you're just like running like all this stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. It's not very fun. I mean, parts of it are like, the fun part is like pulling it off. You're like, oh, I just pulled another one off. Like nobody knows the thing went off with like without a hitch, but it's not exactly like the doing it part is not fun necessarily. Sometimes it is, but yeah.
Every day. Basically. Seriously. And you know how you like, what's a good example for that? You go, because the thought that comes to mind is like, that was a close one.
Yeah.
And then you have that thought at least 10 times a day. Or I have it, you know, especially if I'm not taking care of myself, or I'm and the one part that I'm gonna think about until our next call is probably why I try to, because it's all connected. Like I don't know if other people have it. Happiness through other people is such a excuse. It's not probably not a good way to explain it, but you go, it's so easy to make this person happy. Yeah. That I can just go about and do it. Yeah. This is very difficult to make happy. So, but that's just a, you know, whatever minute or whatever, however long that, whatever makes them happy take. Yeah, why? Like, why?
This is where you turn around and start looking inside, and like you'll get answers to that why. And if you can get answers to those whys, even not conclusions, not certainties, but like a better understanding of your internal landscape, like the amount of energy that you can put towards doing the types of things that you seek to do in the world goes up significantly. Like if you can square your internal landscape, which is doable, like it's an aspiration, right? To take and understand how you operate in the world, and that you are different in like constitution to other people, right? And this, the place that I landed with this that finally like helped me understand this is that like people's relationships to themselves and the world vary in complexity, right? There are some people for whom like traditional or more normative relationships with the world are fine, and that has a level of complexity, and that can be robust, but generally like they're not moving off into territories that are unexplained, really. Areas of thought, areas of relationship, these kinds of things. If, however, you are, because of conditioning and the way you were raised or the way you grew up or what you're interested in, whatever the reasons, you have a tendency towards complexity, meaning like you can hold multiple levels of being, you can see things in the world that give you lots of information that other people are not. Like when you talk to other people, you're like, did you notice this and this and this? And they're like, I didn't even know that you could notice that, much less noticing that, right? It means that you're dealing with information streams and surfaces of reality that require meta systems that you may not be able to practice with other people around you, right? This can lead your brain to build crazy complex structures to try and understand this. And it wasn't until I met Kristen, and I mean, luckily I had Jason as a business partner before, and he had a mind like that. Like we were both very smart and complex thinkers, so we could build shit together. And like we developed our own language around that. The problem is that we couldn't explain it to anybody else. So it had to come out in products. Like like Carbon Made was a product of trying to organize the world, right? Like that's why it worked for people, because it took a complex thing and legibilized it to people, and they're like, oh yeah, this is how I felt about the world. So it wasn't until I found philosophers primarily who are complex thinkers like this, psychologists, other types of artists. Brian Eno, reading his work is really helpful because he is constantly thinking about how the world works and how he fits into it as an artist. And he is talking, you notice that these people have ongoing conversations with scientists and spiritual leaders and big thinkers, because those people are also complex in their relationship to the world. So there is a minimum level of complexity in my relationship that I must have so that I don't feel insane. So like understanding that means that there is tooling to work with this complexity. Anyways, this is what a thing that I found. And it, just knowing that there are other people out there for whom they operate in complex ways, and they have had to research and look through time. I mean, these people have existed forever, right? And they've written down their brains, because otherwise they go nuts. So I don't know. That's helped. Go read Nietzsche. That'll fix everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I always get just one sentence, and I've got it from like so many people now that I'm like, fuck, I should probably look into that. And for whatever reason, after talking about things, and by things I mean the way I think and the way I talk to people, and it doesn't help that I run a business, so how I talk is just. Griffith mentioned it the other day. There was kind of an issue with somebody, and then we're like, all right, we gave them enough time. So I just come in and I go, and I just, this has to get done this week, otherwise X, Y. And here's why. And he goes, you can make orders, or you're very good with just saying that. I'm very soft, like I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. I've done that for so many years. I lost so much money. Now money is a thing that I use to understand when enough is enough. So I guess anyway, then I'm all right. That's basically how I communicate mostly with everybody. And if you are communicating like that with everybody, 100% you're communicating like that with yourself as well. So you're giving yourself deadlines, and you're very like cutting it in half for yourself too, like how you would do that in the negotiation with other people. This takes 1 month, you have 1 week. And that was the part that I need to, the control thing I need to remove. Then the sentence that I've been getting is that you're not living alone in this world. You need to learn how to live in society. Wonderful. I've been getting that a lot. Then the other one is the way that I communicate is really not good. Like I had one, like Emma and I were sitting in the car, and then she was explaining, we took a break because I just flipped multiple times, uncountable times over the past 8 months because of the pressure of a bunch of other stuff. And it does to you something, well, I'm gonna give away excuses, but she go, this house, I just want to explain it to the agents that I need sunlight. So I need the natural light. So I'm going to just explain the north and west. Yeah, she obviously done that. And then she goes, you don't need to teach me. I know how to talk. I'm like, and the only thing that I said at that time was, have you told them where north is? Very simple. Like what is so difficult for them to understand? Because she was saying that the agents don't get what she means with natural light. And I'm like, if that's the response, I'm probably doing it all the time. So this small sentence is a drop for her. And I wish we could do this, but in real life. As you go about living your life, you just kind of record all of your conversations, and then you go, oh my God, is this how I'm talking? Because I would probably be a terrifying person to talk to if I'm talking like my father when he's upset. I'm probably 10 times, or, because as you are, you kind of get better as you...
you just improve on what you learned.
Exactly. And I've heard kind of stories from how things were when he was growing up. From his, there were like 4 or 5 brothers, and one of them was pretty cool. And cool knives and stuff. He was like mentally ill, probably. So that he had that fear. So it's just, and whenever you have anger, it's just fear, fear of loss, or fear of, it's usually fear of loss. Then I go, I've been dealing with this for so long without any success whatsoever. And I keep doing the same things all the times. That kind of avoids me, that kind of blocks me to make any progress, because I don't know even where to start. And I guess next call, we're just going to talk about how you guys live together.
Sure. Okay.
Because it's interesting to me, because I fuck it up always.
Well, it's interesting.
I had a marriage for 8 years, but
So I'm curious with M, or just using M as like a stand-in for the concept. So she's able to call you out a little bit. Is there a way of... No, she doesn't call you
recently, but until now it wasn't. It's a problem.
So that's a problem, that she couldn't call you out and have it be in the open. Not that she's calling you out. It's that it wasn't, she didn't feel comfortable, or you didn't like it that she did, whatever that is. Because part of learning in real time, because if you can't record yourself, if you have a relationship with someone like Dave and I have with each other, where, like, I did the thing to him earlier, I was like, what's up with the preaching? Like, what is going on there? So we do little things like that, where it's like, you're doing the thing right now. Like, he might say, I'm trying to catch myself doing XYZ. Can you help me? And then I'll do it where I'm like, you're doing it. And he's just like, what? And like, part of what happens is he wants to attack me because why are you calling me out on this? Because you asked me to call you out on it. So like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So you just help each other see what you're doing. Are you upset right now? Because you're acting like you're upset and you're just like, I'm not upset. And then you're like, oh, I am upset. And then you're like, okay. So it's like externalizing
like
the
that,
internal. Yeah, you're just creating a space where you don't take it personally either if the other person gets upset or mad or angry when
Yep.
something happens, because there's this understanding that you're trying to work it out. And part of it is like, it's not excusing behavior completely, but it's sort of like, I mean, we've gotten into this before. Like, I can't help that I'm doing this. And like, I've done this where I'm just like, I'm being really mean right now and I know it and I can't stop. And he's like, yeah, you're being nasty. And I'm like, I don't know what's up with it. And it's kind of funny, but it's like not, because it's like, I can't stop doing it. And I'm doing it to him. And he's just like, it's fine. I don't care. Like, I'm not taking it personally right now. But
No.
yeah, it's more
Like it'll
upsetting to
just
me
bounce
because I'm
off
just
of
like,
me.
oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, well, and then it's sitting
Yeah.
there and letting you get it out, because like it's like poison. It needs to come out, right? And like I can sit there and take it, and then what's on the other side of that is the ability to talk about what just happened.
It's like
Like
journaling.
where's that coming from?
It's like
Yeah.
journaling with
Yeah.
sugar. Like all of a sudden you've got
It
all
is
this stuff that
exactly.
you're
It's a
spewing out.
living journal of it. Yeah.
But you have like, there has to be an understanding with
It's a
whoever the
cultural thing
partners
too.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
culture to it of like, I'm
Because
not
in
going to
Europe,
judge
you are
you.
very vocal.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you talk through things in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, you just make a decision, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there is no communication whatsoever, which is probably one of the main reasons why me and my ex-wife split. Because 8 years in, you still haven't been able to break that barrier between, all right, we talk things through. If there is a problem, let's talk about it.
Yep.
And then the call out thing, it's a problem if there is a contrast in living too. So my work and how I live life and my lifestyle, and then somebody else's, and they think I might do some things correct to end up here.
Yeah.
So they need to adjust themselves if I'm saying things. And for me, I don't get upset. My behavior is same. My words are not.
Yeah.
And my words doesn't get ugly, but how I say them.
Yeah, you're surgical and you're
Yeah, it's just.
Yep.
But I don't mean anything, of course, like anybody, I don't mean anything.
Sure.
But
well, it's a control thing again. You can manipulate conversations because your ability with language is so strong. I know this. I can do this.
Yeah,
I
Dave's
had to.
excellent at this.
So this is. I had to realize at a certain point that like I'm like a fucking 500-pound gorilla in most conversations. And if you have power, then you need to learn how to exercise power wisely.
Yeah, including restraint of power.
Wisdom balances out power.
Yeah.
If you don't, this is the sort of basic mental models that you see in wisdom traditions. A non-wise king will destroy everything, right? So like wisdom and power need to be balanced. So practice wisdom, and then you will better use your power, right? And I just could not get away from this thing because I would keep having these circumstances where I would get into an interaction and it wasn't going the way I wanted. So I'd just be like, dit. Now it's how I wanted. And then there's no peer relationship. There's no possibility for a peer relationship.
Yeah.
We are now in a power imbalance. And I hate it. It's lonely. It's terrible. I would rather be like at a peer relationship with more people. And so this is also the practice of learning humility over and over and over again. Just like, okay, I am not going to use those tricks. They're off limits. I won't use them. I won't eat sugar. I won't take stimulants. I won't how can I operate in an environment where the playing field is level, so that when I do bring back in the powerful stuff, I am doing this with wisdom. And it means inaction more often than not, or patience, slowly letting things emerge, letting people for whom they don't have this ability to like oralize or communicate or whatever, letting them flourish and learning how that process works. It's slow and it's tedious, and especially if you're used to moving fast with strength, like, but there's a power in that, right? There, it's a balancing act with the potent energies that you carry. But this is this is I think part of the becoming an adult process. This is where having an archetype type of like, I wish to become a sage or something like this, right? Like, I wish to become somebody for whom many people respect because of the way that I act in the world, right? Okay, how does one become this? What do you practice? How do you act in the world, right? So this is, yeah, I just bashed my head against this thing and created such like chaos that I'm like, I can't do it anymore. Like, you know, so anyways,
It goes so deep
yeah,
because, like how I said, I don't like where this conversation is going. I can own the entire conversation, but also
yeah,
weeks ahead too because of it.
yeah, yep,
So you start going down that path, which basically gives you control over how every single day gonna play out for the next couple of days.
that sounds like hell.
It is fucked up because
Yeah,
um, it's not reality. I mean, it's
nope,
not, you know what the response of a person gonna be. So you basically are just playing puppet with
yeah,
yourself. And but
yep,
um it all starts from seeing things as they are. If you're
yep,
able to, and you don't go into details of things, of behaviors, word choices, things, whatever, you would just live such a happy life. Because just give me glasses and I don't go into details. Like
yeah,
I see a change. I see something. I can backtrack shit from I don't know how long, and I try to connect the behavior and
yeah,
whatever the thing. I'm like, this is why. Because I need to understand the why behind things to understand things. Otherwise, I don't understand them. And if I don't
yeah.
understand them, um,
Then what?
yeah,
What
it's such
happens?
a that interesting. Actually, it was like blank
Yeah,
all the way
yeah.
straight. I've
That one,
never
like
gone there. Look at that.
sitting in uncertainty. I know this one. This is like, so our project that we're doing, the like Buzzard project, is most weeks we get together and I have no fucking idea what's going on. It is terrifying. I hate it. And every week it emerges because it knows what's going on. I don't need to know. Like,
Yeah,
I will know through the process of showing up empty. Yeah.
there's some amount of ceding control as an individual and moving that like to the group. And it's not control, but it's like trust. There's some,
Trust.
yeah. Because you can do something bigger, broader, more meaningful
Yes.
with more people, but you have to be doing it together. And this is where creating a shared consensus reality, you can only do that if you cede individual control. Otherwise, you're
Yes.
always holding back. But if you can open up and sort of like the cheesy thing is open up and hold hands basically and create a space between you, like that's like sort of a visual. There's possibility to do more, to understand more, to have a different like depth, different perspectives than you could have as an individual. But how you do that, that's this is
Yeah.
where we run into a lot of like, what the fuck? Because people can sort of like, so everyone has to come to that understanding, can sort of conclusion and like see the possibility of that on their own. And then we have to come together and talk about how that might work. And then there's technology and it's fun though, but it's sometimes horrible, like the journal entry where with the sugar, where I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to be posting, and I feel like shit, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And I'm like having a temper tantrum like a little kid. But being able to do that and share it with the group, like, and it's okay. People don't, they're not like, what's wrong with you? Most people were like, oh, I'm actually feeling something similar. And it was like, oh, okay, that's nice. Like, I'm not alone.
Rules of play.
Yep. Moving
Just
from
agree
work
on
to
them.
play.
No, as in, if I guess the only way to create alignment between people is that let's agree on these things. Whenever it happens, we communicate them.
That's
Then
structured. I mean, there's ways to do this unstructured, that you trust the people around you to know that they'll bring up what's important when it's important. It's a field of trust, versus a controlled field of trust.
then you go on, people are not as you are. They don't think as you are, and they don't have the same responsibility as you have. And you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like, there are some alignments that needs to be done in order to avoid any disappointments. If you
Why are
just
you avoiding disappointments?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Why are you avoiding disappointment?
waste of time.
It's
It's the
that's a
same thing,
belief.
like,
You can learn from disappointments.
you know how you do
I'm
things
pushing on
to
you.
avoid. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how you do things to avoid, you want things to become success,
Sure.
right? There is a reason that you're investing your time in things.
Sure.
So you go, these things probably gonna come up because we've hired a bunch of people all the time. So we know what things we need to avoid to have a proper onboarding. Let's align on this handbook.
Sure.
I think you
Sure.
probably need that with every single person that you start interacting with on a weekly basis, let alone daily basis. You go, this is how I function. And this is my understanding of things. And this is where I align with people, like these 3 or 4 things or whatever. Then they know. And then, anyway, it's just so.
Some
You
things are
can
known, but not everything is known, right?
no.
Most things for me is not known to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the space where how, like, take what we know and sort of pool it together with a group of people to figure out what we don't know together and bring that into the world,
Yes.
which is different than, well, we know how to do something, let's make it happen. And then it's this. Okay, well, we could do that forever. We know how to do that, but let's get into what we don't know, because that's where things are really interesting and it helps us better understand ourselves in the world. But how do you do that without flipping out? You kind of have to do it with people, because you can't hold the uncertainty as an individual. It becomes, I think you
It becomes
crumble under the weight
overwhelming.
of it.
There's too
Yeah.
much information. So this
This
is the mentality of exploration.
Well, there's a term,
This is a
combinatorial
flip, the business flip,
explosion.
and
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the term
It is designing
combinatorial
for
explosion
emergence.
for me. Like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like, so the flip here, and this relates to Web3 as a technology, is that stack gives you tooling to work in this way. So like you can, rather than setting out with a plan and like rules on how to operate within an environment, you are setting out with an instinct that there is value in some direction, and then a constraint engine that lets you move towards that value. Like, here are types of play that we are going to engage in together, right? And the rule is that you show up and participate. That is the baseline rule. And then you play together in good faith to find the next thing to do, rather than sitting down to plan what you're going to do and then enacting it. You are enacting it as a way to move forward. And that means that you are existing in uncertainty all the time. But that's what the world is right now. All of the systems are breaking down. All of the stuff doesn't make any sense. Your sensors don't work anymore. So you need to move through the environment. It's like going out into the wilderness. There are no maps. You don't know what is there. So there is a way to do this, and it works best together. So you're like, what are you seeing? I am seeing the landscape like this. What are you seeing? The landscape looks like this. Okay, then you coordinate and then you create a better seeing as peers. You are seeing together, you are peering into the future together. And as you do this, you create maps so that other people can follow you. Those maps are very valuable, right? And so if you find your way based on instinct, you can feel that there is something out there that we need to move towards, this field of possibility. And then the tooling lets you design a dream together, right? Here is the constraint system for a possible reality. And then you enact the dream. Like, rather than there is a destination, we know that the destination gets there, we must execute and form ourselves to get to that destination. It is more, we are going to be together and we are explorers. And the fun of exploring, it's play. Every day we'll show up, or every week or whatever it is, and we will play different types of games to see the world. And then we will share our play so that other people can. And you build a community around this style of play, and it will dream something of value into the world. That's the thesis. But if you're an executor and you're a planner and you're strategic in that other model, that older model, this one is really hard. It's moving from like a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And there are downsides to both and there are upsides to both. So it's about balancing this. But the ultimate challenge is being able to do it in this way in a healthy environment, like, with this collaborative mentality. This is, I don't know if that made any sense.
Did you just notice that we talk and see everything through work?
Yeah.
Dave's known this for a while. He's
basically,
there's like an obsession there. Yeah.
I mean, that's just like.
But is work as a vehicle for playing with people, kind of like wanting to do things with people. So it's like a socially normative way of play, but it's gotten to the point for a lot of people in a lot of systems where it's not play anymore. It's not fun. Like, it's this sort of like, it's too much. Like, it's too, like, you just got to show up and do the thing. And like, it's not enjoyable. And like, we're losing the play. We're losing the interaction with other people. So it feels isolating, and like, we're like shells of people in the work structure. But yeah, I mean, work's a big part of at least American culture for sure. Not all cultures.
But work as a destination, so you probably see where you are going, so you're just trying to figure out how to get there, and then you see most things in life through that lens. No, he shakes his head. Dave, really?
I used to
that's a common
have a mentality of that, but what I realized is that's not how reality works. Typically,
so that's a projection.
Know directionally. Yeah, that's a controlling. That's assuming that you know what you're doing. Is a good way not to see what you're actually doing. Like, so what I've had to do is sort of figure out how to trust the people around me, that we are based on behavior, and the fun that we're having is that, if you can create a mutual field of play with smart people who have a lot of options, right? They could go do anything. And if you can create an environment where those people voluntarily come together to play with each other, the likelihood that you will find something interesting that you have an instinct about, but you cannot explain yet. The play is to find something new. Like, if you already know that it exists, like, what are you doing? Like, you've already simulated it. It will never be up to it will never match the simulation that you can create in your head. So this is back to the drawing practice I had. I would simulate a beautiful drawing, and then I would try to replicate that drawing. What is that? That's like living in the future and then trying to live up to a projection. It never fucking works. So rather, like move out into the future a little bit to see what is plausible or possible, then bring it back to a group and be like, this is kind of what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And then use that to move in a direction based on what the group thinks that's the larger collective intelligence, and then analyze what you did, right? This is the movement that I've, so rather than, and then sometimes in the practice of like journaling and talking to myself and doing this work and comparing notes, you'll get flashes of vision of what is possible, right? And so this is like, okay, I know based on the conditions of reality such that we have an understanding that there is a higher likelihood of interesting success in this direction. And that is aligned with something that I wish to learn about myself or wish to learn about the world, right? And I believe that moving in that direction will help me work with insecurity in a way that will cause wisdom to arise, and that will produce like an overwhelming energy that I can then share, right? So this is the model that I'm working with now, rather than I know where I'm headed, I know how to get there, let's fucking go. Like, I know how to do that. And sometimes for some types of projects that works, but for doing things in an unknown environment, like with high levels of uncertainty on things that have not been invented before, you cannot know where to go because you don't even know what is possible to go to. Like you can only build it level by level by level. And then you're building a bridge out to a place that you don't know has a desk. It's like the people from Tahiti, the Polynesians, who like get on a boat and they know that there's land, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know that it exists. They're just going out exploring. And so there's ways to do this. And yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's my mindset. It's terrifying, this mindset, comparatively, which is why it's more fun.
That was a doorbell?
It's Kristen.
Sorta.
She had a, what is it? It's on the door there.
It's like a little.
The ghost walk pass or?
No,
it's,
our housemate John is going for a walk. Yeah,
one of the guys we're
a little
working
bell
with is staying with us.
that I like putting on the front door because it feels like home. Like it's a little like I bring it with us everywhere. And there's something about knowing when things move in and out of the house that's nice for me. It's just like a little, yeah, totem. It just worked. You're like, what's that?
Exactly.
There's sort of like that thing. And like, ideally, you live in a place where, did he freeze? Yeah.
No,
I was like, he's really holding that smile perfect.
I think we were getting a delay there a little bit between you and I. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good timing because I have to use the restroom.
Okay.
And I was gonna cook something. I don't know how everyone's feeling.
Probably pick it up next week. I mean, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
When are we gonna look at, or when is Dave gonna look at, I don't know if it's both of us, Farzad's projects? Because you wanted.
Yeah, so many is just, ugh.
What is the hope there? What are you looking for?
To get things out. I've realized I'm very good with designing products for clients because we need to design the entire thing for them. But then my approach to my own things is that, all right, this is good enough for now. Let's just build that, get that out. But you know, design, like approach it like you do with clients. Design the end product and then you trim it until you get what you have now. But then we're like, oh, let's just build this, see how it feels, and then we add on top of it.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's also not so amazing. So we have 3 products designed and got the kind of a, I hate saying business model. We figured out a pricing and then how we're gonna go about launching them. And then the rising enterprises now called in, and there is a bunch of stuff there that we're gonna push live hopefully soon. And there's a complement stuff, and there's Trio stuff, there's OFC stuff, there's just tons of stuff.
Yep.
But all of them are now blocked by me, not like
Oh, okay.
something doesn't feel right with every single one of them.
Yeah, we can sort of figure out. I mean, I think these talks that we're having are good to start moving
It's like
towards
a
what's blocking you there.
Yeah, I feel like this is foundational. And I would hazard a guess that you're going through some sort of personal growth and it's your work isn't catching up to it. So then you're like going to the work and you're like, this doesn't feel like there's a difference.
There you go.
So you got to catch up like the work or your understanding of the work. Yeah.
Oh, everything is such a mess right now. So it's just, but work need to be done. So I need to get that out. But I know my eyes are not seeing it correctly.
The best thing you can do right now is start journaling.
I will tonight for sure.
Yeah, like just, I mean, give yourself just, don't be too hard on yourself about it. Just like chill with it and start writing. Because like I think about it as it's a lifelong practice. So finding the right rhythm with yourself in the thing takes time, but like these kinds of things will help you bring like observations to the conversation about the products. So that when we talk, you're like, all right, well, here's some of the low hanging fruit that I could realize about myself directly. And then I can give you like some reflections on what I'm seeing and how you're going about building the product and what you're trying to achieve potentially. So I think they go hand in hand. So,
I started questioning a lot of stuff the 2 days ago. And I wrote something. It's not a journal. It's more of understanding why am I doing what I'm doing and who cares, like chill.
It's a journal.
I need to just when people say just chill with it or just chill.
Yeah.
There needs to be how to chill for dummies. That book. Like give me step and I'll figure it out, because I cannot chill. I meditate and then I'm like zen, and then for the rest of the day, but I don't enjoy. Let's just put it there.
Yeah.
Let me send a link.
Sure.
Yeah. That is basically the why behind of everything. That I dropped in the Telegram. Behind how all of these things, and each of them, because of the launching of it, is not going to like within an I don't want to. We had some complications with this project. They were burned out. We were burned out financially because of just months of delay in payments. So we took a break on that relationship for a couple of months, and then now we are going to get back at it. And then I started talking with a lot of people that started their own startup studios with this type of structure. Right? Yep. So talk to the IKEA people, talk to the King people, the Candy Crush. The founders came and they made a studio, and then they were all consumer-facing mobile apps. It's really hard to pull that off. So it didn't go much further than that. They ran it for a few years. I had calls with these people, and heard about their experience running it and things that I should probably avoid, and ended up being that it's probably not a good idea to let the studio be owned by somebody or even take investments for it. Just
Hmm.
let's just figure out what the first thing is going to be and try to raise money for that first thing. So you're not raising money for the holding company, but for the venture.
Yeah.
As a starting point. Wonderful. Then multiple investors. So, thinking about a couple of people that I'm going to reach out to. But as a way to make some kind of money from the thing, we're launching 2 projects that we think is going to make money, which is going to fund the first venture. There's a lot of like we with complement too. There are like 2 ideas that we are approaching now, and yeah, there are a lot of things going on. I need clarity. Yeah.
Look through it. Can try to give you some feedback. It's a big, complex octopus. But yeah.
When do you want to talk?
Yeah.
I feel like these calls are so good to have them as unstructured as we always have them.
Yeah.
So I think whenever the other time you guys are available, I'll show you what's been happening.
Okay.
You can look at our calendar.
Yeah, so
maybe Friday.
Sure.
Works for me. Kirsten's in charge of time. I don't mess with this stuff.
He doesn't like linear time.
No.
Oh my God, yeah, that would be.
Just stop doing everything, and then you don't have to worry about it. That's what I did.
He doesn't have that luxury right now.
I know, but I'm just
running
telling you.
a bunch of businesses.
Quit running everything, and then you'll have all the time in the world.
I'm gonna stop doing everything. All of your clients and like people that you've hired are like, what are you talking about? You're just gonna stop? And you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna
If you stop everything, then the only thing you have to work on is your brain. So if ever you need, that's how you do it. It's a bit much, but whatever works. Yeah, cool.
All right.
We can look through that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pee my pants if I don't go soon.
All right.
I mean, I can let you guys keep going if you want, but
no, I think I probably should eat. So
okay.
We covered a lot of stuff. Cool. All right. Till next time.
All right.
Till next time.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.